Hey guys, welcome back to Fantasy Hub. Today's story is one of my favorites.
Picture this: a dive bar on the wrong side of town, sticky floors, cheap beer, and the kind of karaoke that makes you question your life choices. What was I doing there? Simple. I was hunting, not for prey, mind you, for talent. The kind of raw, unpolished talent that corporate headhunters miss because they're too busy looking in all the right places. Sometimes the best diamonds are found in the rough, and honey, this place was as rough as they come. That's when I saw her. Lisa Chun, 5'6" of pure defiance wrapped in a bartender's apron and combat boots. She was up on that makeshift stage, belting out Janis Joplin's Piece of My Heart like she was channeling the ghost of rock and roll itself. Her voice was whiskey and smoke, rebellion and vulnerability all rolled into one intoxicating package. The crowd was mesmerized. Hell, I was mesmerized. And I don't get mesmerized easily. She finished to thunderous applause, wiping sweat from her brow with the back of her hand, completely unaware that she'd just changed the trajectory of both our lives. I straightened my Armani blazer, checked my reflection in my phone screen, and made my move. "You're wasted in a place like this," I said, sliding onto the bar stool beside her. She looked me up and down, taking in my designer suit, my perfectly styled hair, my manicured nails, and raised an eyebrow. "And you're overdressed." For a dive bar, boss lady. God, I loved her immediately. The audacity. The complete lack of intimidation. In my world, people either cowered or kissed ass. Lisa did neither. I slid my business card across the sticky counter. "Personal secretary, triple your current pay, full benefits." And I leaned in close enough to catch her scent something. Floral mixed with bar smoke and determination, a front row seat to how the other half lives. She studied the card, then looked at me with those dark eyes that seemed to see straight through my carefully constructed persona. "I'll think about it." As she walked away, hips swaying with natural confidence, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years, the thrill of the chase. Not just professional interest, but something deeper, more primal. Oh, she'd take the job, I murmured to myself, already planning my next move. And I was playing a much longer game. 3 days later, Lisa Chun strolled into my corner office. Like she owned the place. 15 minutes late, wearing jeans and a vintage band t-shirt while my other employees scurried around in their pressed shirts and pencil skirts. The entire floor went silent, watching this beautiful disruption walk through our pristine corporate cathedral. I hid my smile behind my coffee cup. Perfect. "You're late," I said, not looking up from my computer. "Fashionably," she replied, settling into the chair across from my desk with zero ceremony. That's when I knew I was in trouble. The good kind of trouble. Lisa wasn't just different from my usual employees. She was different from anyone I'd ever met. She asked questions instead of following orders blindly. She challenged my decisions, offered alternatives, made me think. Within a week, she'd reorganized my entire filing system, streamlined my calendar, and somehow managed to get me to my appointments on time for the first time in months. But more than that, she made me laugh. Real laughter, not the polite chuckles I perfected for board meetings. She had this way of cutting through corporate bullshit with a single raised eyebrow or a perfectly timed quip that left me both frustrated and exhilarated. "Your 3 o'clock is here," she announced one afternoon, not bothering to knock. "Send them in," I replied, still focused on my screen. "I would, but you're not wearing pants." I looked down. She was right. I'd been so absorbed in preparing for the Morrison Foundation's quarterly review that I'd forgotten. I was only wearing my blazer and underwear after changing from my morning workout clothes. "Good catch," I said, reaching for my skirt. "Part of the service," she deadpanned, but I caught the slight flush in her cheeks. These moments became more frequent. The accidental touches when she handed me files. The way she'd bite her lip when concentrating. The late nights when the office emptied and it was just us, working by lamplight, the city sprawling below us like a constellation of possibilities. I'd catch her watching me sometimes, and there was something in her expression that made my pulse quicken. Not the usual combination of fear and respect I saw in others, but something hungrier or dangerous. The breaking point came on a Thursday night in October. We'd been working late again, preparing for the Foundation's annual gala. The office was empty except for us, the cleaning crew long gone. I was reviewing donor lists when Lisa approached my desk with the final seating arrangements. "Here's the guest list," she said, leaning over to place the file in front of me. Her fingers brushed mine as she set it down, a touch that lasted just a moment too long to be accidental. I looked up to find her face inches from mine, her eyes dark and questioning. "Your trouble," I whispered. "You knew that when you hired me?" she replied, her voice barely audible. The air between us crackled with tension that had been building for weeks. I could smell her perfume, see the pulse beating at her throat, feel the heat radiating from her skin. I should have pulled away. Should have remembered the dozen corporate policies this would violate. Should have thought about the power dynamics, the potential complications, the way this could destroy everything I'd worked for. Instead, I kissed her. It was supposed to be soft, exploratory, a test of boundaries. But Lisa kissed back with a hunger that matched my own, her hands fisting in my hair, her body pressing against mine with desperate urgency. Papers scattered as I swept them off my desk. My carefully organized world devolved into chaos as we lost ourselves in each other, clothes hitting the floor, boundaries dissolving like sugar and rain. And just like that, I thought as her hands mapped my body with reverent attention, the line between boss and lover blurred into oblivion. Weeks that followed were intoxicating. We fell into a rhythm that felt as natural as breathing, as dangerous as walking a tightrope. Days belonged to Morrison Holdings, but nights? Nights were ours. Lisa moved through my world with the same confidence she'd shown in that dive bar. She held her own at client dinners, charmed my board members, and somehow made even the most tedious corporate functions bearable with her commentary whispered in my ear. "See the man in the blue tie?" She'd murmur during a particularly boring presentation. "He's thinking about his golf game, the woman in red." She's mentally planning her grocery list, and the guy in the front row, he's wondering if his toupee is on straight. I'd have to bite my lip to keep from laughing out loud, maintaining my professional facade while Lisa's observations painted vivid pictures of the hidden humanity beneath corporate masks. But it wasn't just the humor that drew me to her. Lisa had this way of seeing through the performance, of finding the real person beneath the CEO persona I'd worn for so long. It had become like a second skin. "You don't have to be perfect with me," she said one evening as we lay tangled in my silk sheets, her fingers tracing lazy patterns on my bare shoulder. "I don't know how to be anything else," I admitted, the words slipping out before I could stop them. "Then let me teach you," she whispered, kissing the hollow of my throat. And she did. Lisa taught me how to be vulnerable, how to let my guard down, how to find joy in small moments. She introduced me to her world too, late night diners with the best apple pie in the city, independent bookstores where we could browse for hours, rooftop gardens where we could watch the sunset paint the sky in impossible colors. For the first time in years, I felt alive. Not just successful, not just powerful, but genuinely, vibrantly alive. "I love you," I told her one night as we slow danced in my apartment to music playing from her phone. She stopped moving, her eyes searching my face. "You love me, or you love how I make you feel?" The question cut deeper than I expected. "Both," I said finally, because honesty was something Lisa had taught me to value. "But mostly, I love you." She smiled then, the kind of smile that could power entire cities. Good, because I love you too, Paige Morrison. All of you. Even the parts you think you need to hide. I should have known it was too good to last. Should have remembered that in my world, happiness was a luxury that came with a price tag, and the bill always came due. The first sign of trouble came on a Tuesday morning in November. I arrived at the office to find Lisa already at her desk, which wasn't unusual. What was unusual was the way she avoided my eyes, the tension in her shoulders, the way she jumped when I said good morning. Everything okay? I asked, keeping my voice casual. Fine, she replied, but her smile was strained. Just tired, I let it go. Mistake number one. The second sign came 3 days later when my CFO, Thomas Reeves, requested a private meeting. Thomas was old school corporate, the kind of man who wore his ambition like cologne and his prejudices like a badge of honor. He'd never liked Lisa, had made several pointed comments about maintaining professional boundaries and the importance of proper hierarchies. Paige, he said, settling into the chair across from my desk with the satisfaction of a cat who caught a particularly plump mouse. We need to talk about your secretary, Lisa. What about her? There have been some irregularities in the Morrison Foundation accounts, specifically funds that were designated for the children's literacy program. My blood turned to ice. What kind of irregularities? $50,000 transferred to an account that doesn't match any of our approved vendors. The authorization came from a computer terminal that Lisa had access to. I felt the world tilt on its axis. That's impossible. Lisa would never. I'm not suggesting she acted maliciously. Thomas interrupted, his voice dripping with false sympathy. Perhaps she was confused about the authorization process. Or perhaps someone took advantage of her. Close relationship with you. The implication hung between us like a loaded gun. Either Lisa was a thief or she was a pawn, and both options made my stomach churn. I need to see the records, I said, my voice steady despite the chaos in my chest. Of course. I've already compiled everything for your review. And Paige? He paused at the door, his hand on the handle. The board is going to want answers. Soon. I spent the next hour reviewing the financial records, hoping against hope that Thomas was wrong, that there was some explanation that would clear Lisa's name, but the evidence was damning. The transfer had been made from her terminal during hours when she was the only one in the office, using authorization codes that should have been confidential. When Lisa returned from lunch, I was waiting in my office, the files spread across my desk like evidence at a crime scene. We need to talk, I said, not looking up from the papers. She must have heard something in my voice because she closed the door behind her and approached my desk with cautious steps. Is this about the Thompson account? Because it's about $50,000 that disappeared from the Morrison Foundation. I interrupted, finally meeting her eyes. $50,000 that were transferred from your terminal to an account I'd never seen before. The color drained from her face. Paige, I don't know what you're talking about. The records don't lie, Lisa. Your access codes, your terminal, your shift. You think I stole from you? Her voice was barely a whisper, but it carried the weight of betrayal. I think someone did. And right now, all the evidence points to you. She stared at me for a long moment, and I watched as something broke in her expression. The trust, the love, the easy confidence that had drawn me to her, it all crumbled like a house of cards. After everything we've shared, you actually believe I would steal from you? I don't know what to believe anymore, I said, hating myself for the words, even as they left my mouth. Lisa nodded slowly, her jaw tightening. Well, then I guess we have our answer, don't we? She turned to leave, but I called her name. Lisa, wait. Let me help you. We can figure this out together. She turned back, and the look in her eyes was like a physical blow. You want to help me? Then believe me when I tell you I didn't do this, because if you can't do that, then everything else we had was just a lie. The door closed behind her with a soft click that might as well have been a gunshot. The next few days were a special kind of hell. Lisa came to work, performed her duties with mechanical efficiency, and treated me with the kind of professional courtesy reserved for strangers. The easy intimacy we'd shared was replaced by a chasm so wide it made my chest ache. Meanwhile, the board was circling like vultures. Emergency meetings were called. Lawyers were consulted. The media caught wind of the story, and suddenly Morrison Holdings was trending on social media for all the wrong reasons. Charity funds missing, secretary suspected. Scream the headlines. My phone rang constantly with reporters wanting statements, board members demanding action, and donors threatening to pull their support. You need to fire her, Thomas advised during one particular heated board meeting. Cut ties completely. Show the public that Morrison Holdings doesn't tolerate this kind of behavior. She hasn't been proven guilty of anything, I replied, my voice carefully controlled. The evidence is overwhelming, Paige. She's a liability now. Fire her, prosecute her, and move on. I looked around the conference room at the faces of people I'd worked with for years. People who'd supported my vision, trusted my judgment, followed my lead. Now they were looking at me like I'd lost my mind. I won't throw her to the wolves without a proper investigation, I said finally. Then you're a fool, Thomas replied. And you're risking everything we've built for a woman who's already betrayed you. After the meeting, I sat alone in my office, staring out at the city lights, wondering if he was right. Maybe I was a fool. Maybe I was letting my feelings cloud my judgment. Maybe Lisa had played me from the beginning and I'd been too infatuated to see the con. But then I remembered the way she'd looked at me that first night in the bar. The way she'd challenged me, made me laugh, made me feel human. Again, I remembered her hand in mine, her whispered confessions, the way she'd said she loved all of me, even the parts I tried to hide. That woman couldn't be a thief, wouldn't be a thief, which meant someone else was. I started digging deeper, staying late into the night, going through every transaction, every email, every piece of correspondence related to the Morrison Foundation. If Lessa was innocent, then someone had gone to great lengths to frame her. But who and why? The answer came to me at 3 a.m. on a Friday, buried in a series of vendor payments that had been processed over the past 6 months, small amounts spread across different accounts, but all authorized by the same person, Thomas Reeves. I cross-referenced the vendor information with our approved supplier list. Half of them didn't exist. The other half were shell companies registered to addresses that turned out to be empty lots or abandoned buildings. My CFO had been systematically embezzling from the Morrison Foundation for months, using a complex web of fake vendors and forged authorizations. And when the accounting department started asking questions, he'd needed a scapegoat. Enter Lisa Chen, the secretary with access to the computer systems, the woman who'd been having an affair with her boss, the perfect fall guy who was already viewed with suspicion by the old boys club that ran the company. I felt sick. Sick at the betrayal, sick at my own blindness, sick at what I'd put Lisa through. But mostly, I felt angry. Monday morning, I was waiting in Thomas's office when he arrived, his usual smugness replaced by surprise when he saw me behind his desk. Paige, I wasn't expecting you. If you want to discuss the Chun situation, I think we should sit down, Thomas. Something in my voice must have warned him because he remained standing, his hand moving toward his phone. I wouldn't, I said, sliding a thick folder across his desk. Unless you want to explain to the FBI why you've been embezzling from a children's charity. He went pale, but his composure didn't crack. I don't know what you're talking about. Meridian Consulting, Apex Solutions, Cornerstone Industries. I listed the names like an incantation. Should I go on? Because I have about 20 more shell. Companies that you've been using to funnel money from the Morrison Foundation. His jaw tightened. You can't prove anything. Actually, I can. Bank records, forged authorizations, vendor registrations trace back to your personal accounts. It's all here, Thomas. Every transaction, every lie, every dollar you stole from children who needed books. Those kids don't need books, he snarled, his mask finally slipping. They need discipline, structure, not handouts that their parents will squander on drugs and alcohol. There it is, I said, leaning back in his chair. The real Thomas Reeves. Tell me, how long have you been planning this? Did you always intend to frame Lisa, or was that just a convenient opportunity? He straightened his tie, trying to regain his composure. Miss Chun was a complication. Your relationship with her compromised your judgment. I was protecting the company. You were protecting yourself. And you were willing to destroy an innocent woman to do it. Innocent? He laughed bitterly. She's a gold digger who seduced her way into your bed and your computer systems. If she wasn't stealing from you, she would have been eventually. That's when I lost it. I stood up, my hands flat on his desk, my voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried more threat than any shout. You have 30 seconds to clean out your desk before I call security. And Thomas, if you ever mention Lisa's name again, if you ever so much as think about her, I will personally make sure you spend the rest of your miserable life in a federal prison. Are we clear? He stared at me for a long moment, and I saw the exact moment he realized his game was over. His shoulders sagged, his arrogance crumbling like a house of cards. Perfectly clear, he said finally. 20 minutes later, Thomas. Reeves was escorted from the building in handcuffs, his briefcase in one hand, his dignity in ruins. The FBI had been more than happy to take possession of my evidence, and the media was already spinning the story of corporate fraud and justice. Served. But I barely noticed the vindication. All I could think about was Lisa, and the look in her eyes when she'd asked me to believe her, and how completely I'd failed her when she needed me most. I found Lisa in the break room, staring out the window at the city below. She looked smaller somehow, diminished by the weight of the accusations that had been hanging over her head. It's over, I said, sitting down across from her. Thomas confessed. The charges against you are being dropped. She didn't look at me. I know. I saw the news. Lisa, I'm sorry. I should have believed you. I should have trusted you. But you didn't, she said simply. When it mattered most, you chose to believe the worst about me. I was scared, I said, the words feeling inadequate, even as I spoke them. Everything I'd built was falling apart, and the evidence was manufactured, she interrupted, finally turning to face me. By a man who hated me from the moment I walked into this building. And instead of seeing that, instead of trusting the woman you claim to love, you threw me to the wolves. I know. I fucked up. I let my fear control me, and I hurt you in the process. But Lisa, please, don't let his manipulation destroy what we had. She studied my face for a long moment, and I saw the war between love and hurt playing out in her expression. What we had was beautiful, she said finally, but it was also fragile. And once trust is broken, Paige, it's almost impossible to rebuild. Almost, I said, reaching for her hand. But not completely. We can try. We can take it slow, rebuild from the ground up. She didn't pull away, but she didn't squeeze back either. I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if I can work here, be around you every day, and pretend that everything is fine. Then don't, I said, the word surprising us both. Take a leave of absence, travel, figure out what you want, but don't disappear from my life entirely. And what about you? Are you going to chase after me like some romantic comedy heroine? I smiled despite everything, only if you want me to. For the first time in days, I saw a ghost of her old smile. I'll think about it. Lisa took the leave of absence. 3 months, she said. Time to clear her head, to figure out what she wanted, to decide if we had a future together. I threw myself into work, using the Morrison Foundation's revival as both penance and distraction. We launched new programs, expanded our reach, and slowly began to rebuild the trust that Thomas's betrayal had shattered. But every day, I wondered where Lisa was, what she was doing, if she was thinking about me the way I was thinking about her. I resisted the urge to have her followed, to call her friends, to show up at her apartment uninvited. This was her time, her choice, and I had to respect that. The hardest part was the silence. No witty commentary during boring meetings. No shared glances across conference rooms. No late-night conversations that meandered from business to dreams to fears. The office felt empty without her presence, like a song missing its melody. I hired a new secretary, a competent woman in her 50s who organized my life with military precision and never once challenged my decisions. She was perfect for the job, and I hated every efficient moment of it. You're miserable, my assistant, CFO Sarah observed one afternoon after I'd snapped at 3 different people in the span of an hour. I'm fine, I lied. No, you're not. You're in love with a woman who may never come back, and you're taking it out on everyone around you. That's complicated. Love usually is. But moping around isn't going to win her back. I'm not moping. Sarah raised an eyebrow. You've worn the same black suit 3 days in a row. You haven't eaten anything but coffee and anxiety for lunch. And yesterday I caught you staring at her empty desk for 10 minutes straight. Point taken, I admitted. So what are you going to do about it? That was the question, wasn't it? What was I going to do about it? The answer came to me at 2 in the morning on a Tuesday, as I was reviewing the final preparations for the Morrison Foundation's annual gala. The same gala that Lisa had been helping me plan when everything fell apart. This year's theme was second chances, and as I looked at the agenda, the guest list, the carefully orchestrated evening designed to showcase our recovery from scandal, I realized that this was my moment. Not to grand gesture her into submission, but to show her and myself who I'd become because of her influence. To demonstrate that her impact on my life went far beyond our romantic relationship. I rewrote my speech 7 times, each draft more honest than the last. I wasn't going to hide behind corporate speak or carefully constructed personas. I was going to stand in front of 300 of the city's most influential people and tell them the truth. About the foundation, about Thomas, about Lisa, about how love had made me vulnerable and how vulnerability had made me stronger. Are you sure about this? Sarah asked, reviewing the final draft. This is pretty personal for a charity gala. I'm sure, I said, and for the first time in months, I actually was. The invitations went out 2 weeks before the event. I didn't know if Lisa would come, didn't even know if she was still in the city, but I hoped. God, how I hoped. The Morrison Foundation's annual gala was held at the Grand Ballroom of the Meridian Hotel, the same venue where I'd first met most of the board members, where I'd given my first speech as CEO, where I'd learned to navigate the treacherous waters of high society philanthropy. Tonight, it felt different. The same elegant decorations, the same designer gowns and expensive suits, the same carefully orchestrated networking opportunities, but I was different. Changed by love, by loss, by the hard-won knowledge that success without someone to share it with was just a beautiful prison. I worked the room for the first hour, making polite conversation with donors, thanking volunteers, ensuring that everyone felt valued and appreciated. But my eyes kept scanning the crowd, looking for one face. Among the sea of familiar ones, she wasn't there. I tried not to let the disappointment show, tried to focus on the evening's purpose. The foundation was stronger than ever. Our programs were reaching more children than before, and we'd turned a scandal into an opportunity for growth and transparency. But as I stood at the podium, looking out at the sea of faces, all I could think about was how much I wanted to share this moment with Lisa, how her commentary would have made me smile, how her presence would have grounded me, how her love had made all of this possible. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, my voice carrying across the hushed ballroom. A year ago, the Morrison Foundation faced its greatest crisis. We were betrayed by someone we trusted, our integrity was questioned, and our mission was threatened. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. This wasn't the usual feel-good charity speech they were expecting. But sometimes, I continued, the greatest crises lead to the greatest revelations. We learned that our systems needed improvement, that our oversight had gaps, that our trust had been misplaced. But we also learned something more important, that the truth, no matter how painful, is always worth fighting for. I paused, my eyes scanning the crowd once more. Still no Lisa. The person who helped us uncover that truth, who stood by us when the evidence seemed overwhelming, who never wavered in their integrity, even when they were falsely accused. That person taught me something about courage, about loyalty, about the difference between love and obsession, between trust and control. And then I saw her. Lisa was standing at the back of the ballroom, wearing an emerald green dress that made her skin glow like silk and her eyes shine like stars. She was more beautiful than I remembered, more radiant than my dreams had dared to imagine. Our eyes met across the crowded room, and I felt my heart skip a beat. That person, I said, my voice growing stronger, showed me that the greatest risk isn't in loving someone, but in not loving them enough to trust them completely, in not believing in them when the world tells you to doubt. I could see tears in Lisa's eyes, and I knew that my own voice was thick with emotion. So tonight, as we celebrate the Morrison Foundation's recovery and renewal, I want to acknowledge the woman who made it all possible, who made me possible, who taught me that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's the greatest strength of all. The crowd was completely silent now, hanging on every word. Lisa-chan, I said, looking directly at her, you saved more than just this foundation. You saved me. And then I did something I'd never done before, something that would have been unthinkable to the woman I'd been a year ago. I stepped down from the podium, walked through the crowd of surprised faces, and dropped to one knee in front of the woman who'd changed my life. Marry me, I said, my voice soft but carrying in the sudden silence, not because I need you, but because I choose you. Every day, every challenge, every joy. Let's burn the rule book together and write our own story. The ballroom held its breath. I could hear the whispers, see the shocked faces, feel the weight of 300 pairs of eyes watching us. But all I could see was Lisa, tears streaming down her cheeks, her hands covering her mouth. You beautiful, impossible woman, she whispered, loud enough for me to hear, but quiet enough to feel intimate. Do you have any idea what you've done? I've told the truth, I said simply. Finally. She looked at me for a long moment, and I saw the exact instant when forgiveness won out over hurt, when love conquered fear, when trust decided to take another chance. Yes, she said, her voice growing stronger. Yes, I'll marry you. Yes, I'll burn the rulebook with you. Yes to all of it. The ballroom erupted in applause as I slipped the ring onto her finger, a ring I'd been carrying for 2 months, hoping for exactly this moment. As I stood and pulled her into my arms, As I kissed her in front of everyone who mattered in my professional world, I felt something I'd been missing for 3 months. I felt complete. The media had a field day, of course. CEO proposes to secretary at charity gala, screamed the headlines. From scandal to love story, the Morrison Foundation's unlikely romance, read the magazine features. But for once, I didn't care about the headlines. I didn't care about the board's concerns or the shareholders' reactions or the potential impact on the company's image. I cared about Lisa, about the life we were building together, about the future we'd almost lost. No regrets? Lisa asked. One evening, as we sat in my apartment, wedding magazine spread across the coffee table, her engagement ring catching the light. Only one, I said, looking up from the seating chart we'd been working on. What's that? That I didn't trust you from the beginning. That I let fear make me doubt the best thing that ever happened to me. She set down her magazine and moved to sit beside me on the couch. We both made mistakes, Paige, but we learned from them. We grew because of them. Is that what you call it? Growth? I call it love, she said simply, the real kind. The kind that survives doubt and betrayal and corporate scandals. The kind that makes you better instead of smaller. I pulled her close, breathing in the familiar scent of her hair, feeling the solid warmth of her body against mine. I love you, I said, words that had once felt foreign on my tongue, but now felt as natural as breathing. I love you too, she replied. All of you. The CEO, the vulnerable woman, the fierce protector, the hopeless romantic who proposed in front of 300 people. Game over, I murmured against her hair. I won. We won, she corrected. We both won. We married 6 months later, in a small ceremony at the Botanical Gardens where Lisa had first taken me to watch the sunset. No corporate sponsors, no media coverage, no carefully orchestrated networking opportunities. Just us, our closest friends and family, and the promise of a future built on trust, love, and the courage to be vulnerable with each other. Sarah was my maid of honor, having proven herself to be not just an excellent CFO, but also a true friend. Lisa's sister flew in from Seattle to stand beside her, and even my notoriously difficult mother managed to behave herself for the entire ceremony. Do you, Paige Morrison, take Lisa Chun to be your wife, to love and cherish, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, in corporate scandal and charity galas, for as long as you both shall live? I do, I said, looking into Lisa's eyes and meaning it with every fiber of my being. And do you, Lisa Chun, take Paige Morrison to be your wife, to love and cherish, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, in boardrooms and dive bars, for as long as you both shall live? I do, Lisa said, her voice strong and clear. Then by the power vested in me by the state of New York, I pronounce you wife and wife. You may kiss the bride. And as Lisa pulled me close, as her lips met mine in a kiss that tasted like forever, I thought about the game I'd thought I was playing that night in the dive bar. How I'd believed I was hunting for talent, for someone to fit into my carefully constructed world. Instead, I'd found someone who turned my world upside down in the best possible way. Someone who taught me that the greatest victories aren't the ones you win alone, but the ones you share with the person you love. The best risks, I realized as Lisa's laughter filled the garden air, really are the ones you take in love. I'm writing this from our home office, watching Lisa work in the garden through the window. She's wearing one of my old Princeton t-shirts and a pair of dirt-stained jeans, her hair escaping from the messy bun she'd attempted this morning. She's never looked more beautiful. The Morrison Foundation is thriving. We've expanded our programs to 12 states, built 3 new literacy centers, and helped over 50,000 children learn to read. Lisa serves as the Director of Community Outreach, a position she's transformed from a ceremonial title into a vital part of our mission. Morrison Holdings is doing well too, though I've learned to delegate more, to trust my team, to remember that success means nothing if you don't have someone to share it with. We bought this house 2 years ago, a Victorian in Brooklyn Heights, with a garden that Lisa immediately claimed as her domain. She's turned it into something magical, with climbing roses and herb gardens and a small greenhouse, where she grows orchids that she names after board members who particularly annoy her. Thomas is looking peaked, she say, examining a particularly stubborn bloom. Maybe he needs more fertilizer. I've learned to cook, believe it or not. Nothing fancy, but I can make a decent pasta sauce, and my pancakes are reportedly edible, bordering on good. Lisa still laughs when I set off the smoke detector, but she also kisses me when I succeed, and that makes every burnt offering worth it. We've had our challenges, of course. The first year of marriage was an adjustment period, as we learned to navigate the difference between being lovers and being partners. There were arguments about work-life balance, about my tendency to bring corporate strategy to domestic disputes, about her habit of leaving coffee cups in every room of the house. But we learned to fight fair, to apologize quickly, to remember that we're on the same team even when we disagree about the best way to load the dishwasher. You know what I love most about our story? Lisa said last week as we lay in bed, her head on my chest, our legs tangled together in the familiar comfort of long intimacy. What's that? It's not a fairy tale. It's better than that. It's real. She was right. Our story isn't perfect. We didn't ride off into the sunset without complications. We had to work for a happy ending, had to choose each other again, and again, had to learn that love isn't just a feeling, but a decision you make every day. But that's what makes it beautiful. That's what makes it ours. The media still occasionally runs "Where Are They Now?" pieces about us, particularly around the anniversary of Thomas's arrest or the foundation's major fundraising events. They paint us as either a corporate power couple or romantic fairy tale, depending on the angle they're pursuing. They're wrong on both counts. We're just two women who found each other in the most unlikely place, who nearly lost everything because of fear and pride, who fought their way back to each other and decided to build something beautiful together. The Morrison Foundation's newest initiative is a program for formerly incarcerated individuals, helping them develop literacy skills and job training. It was Lisa's idea, born from her belief that everyone deserves a second chance, that redemption is possible for anyone willing to do the work. Even for CFOs who embezzle from children's charities. I'd asked when she first proposed the program, especially for them, she'd replied, "Hurt people hurt people, Paige, but heal people heal people." That's my wife. Always seeing the potential for growth in the most unlikely places. Thomas, by the way, served 18 months in federal prison and was released last year. He sent us a letter, both of us, not just me, apologizing for his actions and thanking us for the work we're doing. He's working as a bookkeeper for a small nonprofit in Ohio now, helping veterans transition to civilian life. Lisa wanted to write back. I wanted to ignore it entirely. We compromised by sending a brief note wishing him well and including information about our second chance program in case he ever wanted to volunteer. "You're too good for this world," I told her after we'd mailed the letter. "No," she said, kissing my cheek. "I'm just the right amount of good for your world." Speaking of our world, it's expanded recently. 3 months ago, we officially began the adoption process. The social worker who conducted our home study was a stern woman in her 60s who seemed determined to find fault with our unconventional love story. "So you met in a bar," she said, making notes on her clipboard. "And she worked for you." "She worked with me," I corrected. There's a difference. And there was a scandal involving embezzlement. There was a scandal involving someone else's embezzlement, yes. Lisa was completely exonerated. More notes. And this proposal at a charity gala, some might say that was quite public for such a private matter. Lisa, who had been uncharacteristically quiet during the interrogation, finally spoke up. Ma'am, with respect, love isn't something you hide. It's something you celebrate. And after almost losing each other, we wanted the whole world to know that we choose each other every day in front of everyone who matters to us. The social worker looked up from her clipboard, and for the first time, I saw her smile. Well, sighed Mrs. Morrison. Actually, it's Mrs. Morrison Chen now, Lisa corrected. We hyphenated. Even better, the woman said, making a final note. I think you two are going to make excellent parents. We find out next month if we've been matched with a birth mother. The waiting is excruciating and exhilarating at the same time. Lisa has already started preparing the nursery, painting murals on the walls that tell the story of a little girl who could become anything she wanted to be. What if it's a boy? I asked, watching her add details to a scene of a female astronaut planting a flag on Mars. Then he'll grow up knowing that girls can be astronauts too, she replied without missing a brushstroke. God, I love this woman. Tonight is the 5th anniversary of our first kiss, though we don't officially celebrate it because Lisa claims I'm aggressively romantic and exhausting to shop for. Instead, we're going back to where it all started, that dive bar in Queens where I first heard her sing. It's changed ownership twice since then, but they still have karaoke on Thursday nights, and Lisa still knows all the words to Peace. Of my heart, are you going to sing? I asked as we got ready to leave. Only if you do, she said, adjusting my collar with the same care she's shown me every day for the past 5 years. I don't sing. You do now, she said, kissing me softly. You do a lot of things now that you didn't do before. She's right. I sing off-key in the shower. I dance in the kitchen while making breakfast. I laugh at her terrible puns. I cry at commercials about reunited families. I've become someone I wouldn't have recognized 6 years ago. Someone softer and stronger. And infinitely more alive. What changed? She asked once, after I'd spent 20 minutes playing with a neighbor's dog instead of checking my phone. You, I said simply. You changed everything. But that's not quite right either. Lisa didn't change me so much as she revealed me. She showed me parts of myself I'd forgotten existed, dreams I'd buried under ambition, hopes I'd dismissed as impractical. She taught me that vulnerability isn't weakness, that trust isn't naivety, that love isn't something you fall into, but something you build, day by day, choice by choice. The game I thought I was playing that night in the dive bar, the hunt for talent, the strategic acquisition of someone who might be useful, it was never really a game at all. It was fate, destiny, the universe's way of putting two people in the same place at the same time so they could save each other. I didn't win Lisa. We won each other. And every morning when I wake up next to her, every time she laughs at something I've said, every moment she chooses to share her life with mine, I remember that the best victories aren't the ones you achieve alone. They're the ones you celebrate together. The sun is setting now, painting our garden in shades of gold and amber. Lisa is finished with her planting and is washing her hands at the outdoor spigot, humming something under her breath that sounds like happiness. In a few minutes, we'll get in the car and drive to Queens, to a dive bar where everything started. I'll watch her sing, and maybe I'll even join her for a duet. We'll drink cheap beer and laugh at the terrible karaoke performances, and I'll fall in love with her all over again. Because that's what love is, I've learned. It's not the lightning bolt of attraction or the butterflies of new romance. It's The daily choice to see someone fully, flaws and all, and choose them anyway. It's the decision to trust them with your heart, even when that heart has been broken before. It's the courage to be vulnerable, the wisdom to be patient, the strength to forgive, and the faith to believe that two imperfect people can create something perfect together. Game over? No, game just beginning. Because the best love stories aren't about winning or losing. They're about playing for the same team for the rest of your life and discovering that the prize was never the victory. The prize was finding someone worth playing with. As I watch Lisa walk toward the house, dirt under her fingernails and joy in her eyes, I know that I've already won the only game that ever mattered. And tomorrow, I'll wake up and choose to keep playing because she's worth every risk, every challenge, every beautiful, terrifying, wonderful moment of loving and being loved. The best risks really are the ones you take in love, and I wouldn't have it any other way.